A question I get asked a lot is, how should I study to get ready for one of these exams? And I don't mean what books to study or practice exams. I just mean general studying. How do I get in the right mindset? How do I get prepared? How do I make sure that I'm in the best possible position to pass the exam? Well, studying, it really is different for everybody. Everybody has different preferences, styles of study, and things that work for them and things that don't. A lot of us kind of sort that out while we're in high school or grammar school or wherever. You kind of learn what works for you and go through it. If you've been to college, you probably experienced it there. But maybe you didn't. Maybe you just never quite found one method or whatever that worked for you. So what I want to do is throw out the way that I study, the way that I prepare for an exam, and what I do, and maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. You can give it a shot. It's not going to hurt, that's for sure. All right. Well, when it comes to studying, I know I had problems. Back in high school, I was not a very good student, and I didn't do a great job. And one of the problems was that I just didn't, well, back then, I just didn't take the exam seriously enough. I didn't want to pass as much as I do now in my professional career. But in college, I actually did kind of fall into a pattern that worked well for me, and I still do that today, just with any exam. So when a new exam comes out and I need to study for it, I have the same methodology that I follow that I've always followed. And it comes down to a few things. I had read an article from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that was basically information they provided to their students on how to prepare for an exam. And so I'm going to just blatantly rip it off right here. So basically they had a 5-step process for kind of getting ready for an exam. And they were talking about college exams, but it's the same for certifications, right? So our first thing that we need to do is start early, right? A lot of us have to pass exams because our employers are requiring it. So your employer comes to you and says, you know what, you've got to be a MCSE by January 1st. You've got to be certified by that time, all right? Well, start studying now. Doesn't matter if January 1st is 1 month or 5 months away, start studying now. You don't want to try and cram all your studying into the last week before the exam. It's not going to be effective. It's just too much information. So start early. That's good advice for everybody. Next, find out how much time you can dedicate to study, right? I think MIT actually called it survey the available time or something like that. And basically what they're trying to convey there is look at your work schedule, your family schedule, find out how much time you really have to study. Most people have some time. You can free up time to study, but if you're really busy, if you're holding down 2 jobs, it's not realistic for you to study a ton in a given week. So when you schedule the exam, it needs to be far enough out to allow for you to study. The rule of thumb that I always follow is if you were to go and take an official course, right? Most of the courses that you do for certification exams are 5-day courses. So 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's 40 hours. 40 hours of course material for most of the IT certifications. That's not true for all of them, but this is kind of just a rule of thumb, right? The number I use is you should study 3 hours for every 1 hour of material that you learn. So if it was a 40-hour course, you should be studying 120 hours to get ready for it. Now that sounds like a lot of hours, and if you're carrying 2 jobs, if you've got a family, it's tough to cram that in. So you're only going to get a few hours a week of study time, and that means it's going to take you longer to get ready for that exam. But if you can assign some priority to it, if you can set aside that time and study, you can usually get ready for an exam pretty quickly. All right, that's the nice thing is when you can get in and get that reward faster, right? Instantaneous reward, that's what everybody wants. So generally when I get ready for an exam, here's the pattern that I follow. And just because of my lifestyle and family and stuff, this is how it works for me, is that Monday through Friday, I study for 1 hour a day. At night, at the end of the day, I set aside an hour and I study. And I don't mean I have a book in my lap while I'm watching TV. I don't mean that I'm just listening to something and doing 2 things at once. I mean that I am focused and solely studying, reading that book, doing those exercises, whatever it is, for that 1 hour, 1 hour a day, Monday through Friday. So that's 5 hours. And then on Saturday, most people do have a 5-day work week, so you have 2 days off for your weekend. On Saturday, I will treat it like another work day. And I will take 8 hours. If you were to work 8 hours Monday through Friday, that's pretty normal. So I take 8 hours and I study. I hit the books, I hit the labs, I fire up some virtual machines, I do whatever I need to learn and master that material, right? And then on Sunday, I take a day off, right? You can't study every day, you'll go crazy, right? So following that pattern, I study for about 13 hours a week, right? Or I guess, what does that work out to? It'd be, not 13 hours, sorry. Well, actually, yeah, 13 hours. All right, good math. I need to study more on math, apparently. So about 13 hours a week. Well, if I need to study for an exam that has 120 hours of study material associated with it, then it's going to take me 10 weeks to get ready for that, right? So that may be too long for us. That's 2.5 months. If I need to get ready for the exam sooner, I'm going to need to attach more time to it, right? So it's all about time management. Figure out the time you have in your schedule and kind of plan for that. And understand that we call it life happens, right? Sometimes things that are out of your control happen and you have to miss some study time or whatever. Just understand that that's pushing back when you'll be ready for that exam, all right? The third thing is set priorities. A lot of exams cover a ton of material. You need to prioritize your material. If you're strong in one area and weak in another, you need to focus in on the area you're weak on. Don't focus on like reading the entire book if you're already comfortable with half of it. Focus in on the areas where you're weak. If you don't know the areas that you're weak, that's where a practice exam really helps. Measure Up, Transcender, Test Out. There's a whole bunch of different companies out there that make practice exams for IT companies. You can go, if you're an ITProTV subscriber, you get Measure Up exams as a part of your subscription. So, take advantage of that. You can take the practice exam and it will tell you where you're weak. It will help you focus in on those areas. So prioritize. Don't try and tackle all the information at once. It's just too much. All right. Then choose a study style. Figure out what works best for you, right? For me, I can read a book and I'll get good information out of it. I have good retention. But where I really learn is hands-on. When I'm doing a lab, when I'm firing up some virtual machines, configuring some software, that's where I really learn. That's when things stick and retain in my mind. And I know that for me, repetition equals retention. The more that I repeat it, the more easily I retain it and keep it. So that's good for me. That might not be good for you. Maybe you are a book learner. You're not a lab learner. Spend your time in the books, right? Spend your time in the area where you get the most benefit from it, and that way you're not, just spinning your wheels trying to learn something and it's not sticking, all right? And then the last part that the MIT guys had is stick to your plan. When you come up with a study plan, stick to it. If you say you're going to study 1 hour a day, do it. And if you have to miss one day, study 2 hours the next to make up for it, right? A lot of people get distracted, they let other things kind of take over, and they stop studying, and then they never take the exam. Or before long, the information's kind of passed out of their head, and it's like they're starting over again. You don't want that. Stay focused, stay on track, and get certified. Because remember, you don't really get a reward for saying, I studied X amount of hours. You get a reward for saying, I'm certified, right? So that's that goal. Stay on target and stay focused, all right? There are a few things that I'd probably add to this just from my own personal experience, which is when you start studying for an exam, go ahead and schedule it. Schedule it. Call up View or Prometric or whoever it is that's administering that exam and schedule a date for it. Right? If you're just studying with no date set, it's very easy to delay. It gives yourself an excuse. But if you've scheduled that exam and let's say that today is May 30th and you schedule it for August 30th, you've got 2 months. 2 months to get ready for that exam, right? Now you set your plan and you stick to it. But if you don't schedule that date and a few days go by and you don't study, you say, well, you know what, instead of taking it August 30th, I'll just take it the next month. Or, maybe I'll push it back to October. Well, what's going to happen? October's going to come around, you'll say, I'll push it back to November. And then November comes around and it's the holiday season. You got Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever holidays you have, you start coming up with excuses to delay. So schedule the exam. Get it on the books. Get that number, you pay the money, get the exam scheduled, and now you got a date to work towards. That will keep you motivated. That is important, all right? So that's a key thing that I would add. Just make sure you have that. And I'm sure MIT, they probably didn't add that because, well, their exams have a date, right? You have final exams at the end of the semester. But with certification exams, we don't have that. So you kind of want to add that piece and remember to adhere to it, all right? The other thing is, keep in mind that exams are frequently updated. So if you're studying for a Windows 7 exam today, well, the Windows 8 exams are already out. When the Windows 9 exams come out, they'll cancel the Windows 7 ones. So you've got to take those exams before they get canceled. If you don't, if an exam retires before you take it, you have to start all over. New books, new material, new videos, episodes, whatever. It's really starting over, and a lot of people get discouraged and stop. All right. So those are some key things. And the last thing that I want to leave you with on how you prepare for the exam is, if you are just clueless as to what the exam is going to be like, you just don't know. There's so many uncertainties. You got to go in and take it. Take the exam. Too many people keep delaying and delaying and delaying until they're perfect. Well, you're never going to be perfect, right? I have taken over 40 different exams in my IT career, and only once, 1 out of 40 times, did I get a perfect 1,000, right? It's not a very common thing, but it's happened once for me. And I've failed a few. I think I failed 3 exams, and I've always gone back and passed them again. That's the key thing. Don't get discouraged. Everybody fails an exam sooner or later. You can't be a winner every time. If you study and you prepare and everything's in line, you will pass the first time. The 3 that I failed, I can tell you right now, I was not prepared for all 3 of them. I had not done the proper preparations. It was my own fault. And for me, I'm the kind of person that gets motivated by that. If I don't pass an exam, it makes me really angry. And for the next week, you can ask my wife, I am a laser beam focused in on studying and nothing else. And I'll pass that exam within a week or 2 because it becomes my passion, my mission. I will pass it. So don't get discouraged if you don't pass an exam. If you don't pass it twice, maybe you fail the exam twice, it's really unfortunate, but it's showing that you're preparing wrong. There's something you're doing in your preparations is not correct. You need to make adjustments. Practice exams are one of the greatest ways to do that. Measure Up, Transcender, whoever it is that you use, they're all good products. They help you to find your weak areas. You need to bone up on them. A common mistake that I see people make is they'll get a practice exam and they'll do it over and over and over again until they get a 100. Well, the problem is you're memorizing those questions. You're kind of memorizing them stuck in your head, and you're not really having to think about them anymore. You already know the answer. So the fact that you're getting a perfect score on them doesn't reflect that you actually have that knowledge. So don't overuse practice exams. You should really only take a practice exam 2, maybe 3 times just to help you find those areas that you're weak in. Don't sit there and repeat the questions over and over and over again. It will give you a false sense of being prepared, right? So you got to be careful with that. All right, so those are some of the little test taking tips or test preparation tips that I have. That's what works for me. Again, that might not work for you at all. You might hear that and go, Don, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. This is how I study. Well, do what's right for you. But if you've got nothing, you can give my style a shot. And I say my style, I pretty much robbed it from MIT. So, those guys, they should know better. They're one of the highest reputation schools in the United States. So, they're full of people who are successful. We try and be successful with every exam we take. So take that under account, and best of luck to you.